we set out the story initially, and then we let the game designer do his thing, and then we're like, all right, let's make sense of this thing and make it fun and make it shine.
What's going on, guys? Joe Deckelmeyer with Screen Rant. I am here at Comic-Con in San Diego. We're here with the creator of Scott Pilgrim, Bryan Lee O'Malley, and Tribute Games, Yannick Belzil, to talk about Scott Pilgrim EX, a brand new story, all new music, a whole new world, a whole new way to fight through Toronto with a gang now. Now, Scott Pilgrim EX isn't just a remastered version. It's a bold reimagining of a new storyline, expanded gameplay, and co-op elements. Talk to me about balancing that nostalgia for the longtime fans and the ideas that make it feel fresh to the Scott Pilgrim world.
Yeah. Every time I do a Scott Pilgrim thing, I would like new people to discover it. I always want it to feel fresh. So we kind of looked at it more like a Mario, a Zelda, a Final Fantasy, where it's like you don't need to know anything going in. You learn everything when you start playing the game. So, and that's kind of how I've treated it every time. The old video game, we did an anime series. Everything you can kind of just come in cold, discover it, and then you're like, oh my God, I love Scott Pilgrim. Let's read the comics. Let's go back to the other game, all that stuff.
Yeah, a question that we get a lot is like, how does the game relate to the previous installments? But sure. The Zelda comparison is really apt because it exists in sort of a Zelda-like continuity where all the events and all the other stuff that happened before is sort of half remembered in myth, but it matters, but it's not truly like hardline connected.
Now, the original Scott Pilgrim versus the World game became such a cult classic. Yannick, what lessons or inspirations did you take from that game to help shape Scott Pilgrim EX, and what were the must-have elements that you knew needed to return?
Well, one of the really exciting things about this version of Scott Pilgrim is that first, Tribute Games, our studio was founded, our founders met on working on the first game. So it was always like totemic for us, and it was we hope to get back to it someday, because I feel in the new game, we get to do a lot of stuff that was planned or that was dreamed of for the earlier game, like having more of a world that you can discover, have adventures in it, as opposed to be more streamlined, linear beat 'em up.
Now, this game blends 2D brawling with the character progression and customization. What inspired this deeper RPG style that impacts the way characters kind of connect?
It's like he was saying, they wanted to do more with the original game, and this is like it's a way for fans to kind of live in that world longer and to experience that character growth themselves. And, you get to buy stuff, and you get to, meet NPCs that are familiar from the books or from the movie, etc. I just think it's like a fun way for fans to kind of immerse themselves in Scott Pilgrim.
Speaking of immersion, Toronto is like a character itself in the game. Can you talk about reimagining the pixelated version of that city? And can fans expect some fun Easter eggs and deep cut references from the comics and film?
Yeah, I believe so. It was really fun to recreate visually because, again, we did not want to do the same thing. Like something that's interesting about the game now is that the first game was sort of imagined back when the comic only existed in black and white.
Yep.
And now, ever since, there's been a color version of the comics, there's been an animated series, there's been the movie. So there's a whole new color language and a different way to stylize the art, but we didn't want to do the same thing. So the world now is portrayed as sort of this like a diorama shoebox type of way that has a charming like NES or Super NES or Earthbound-ish aesthetic that we feel that works really well.
Yeah, I think it almost has more of an 8-bit feeling. It's actually the same artist, Stéphane Boutin, is like doing the backgrounds. It's the original game. Like, it's a totally different style, but it's the same dude.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Now, you've always been hands-on with any way that Scott Pilgrim's been adapted, whether it be through comics, films, or games. Can you talk about stepping back into this world and co-writing a new storyline? And did you find yourself exploring new facets of Scott and Ramona that you hadn't touched on before?
Honestly, it's a little more diffuse since it's a game. Since there's a lot of characters, it's not quite as focused on Scott and Ramona's journey. But with Yannick's help, like we're co-writing it, so we're just kind of exploring all these corners of the universe and aspects of the characters and their lives in Toronto that I don't think we've ever really explored before.
Yeah, the really exciting thing to be working with Bryan on this thing is I've now worked with other licenses on other games, and it now strikes me that these licenses, which was very obvious, of course, that they were made with a commercial end, and because of that, they are easier to pick up and reiterate. But with Scott Pilgrim, it comes from him. It's his soul, it's his emotions, and it's his inner life. So that is like, I can imagine that if I had to write it on my own, like it'd be like a pale copy. It would lack his wit and the way he sees these characters. It would be flattened in a way that now it's in 3D. It is in 3D, despite it, being pixel art with his work on it.
Now, narrative-driven brawlers aren't really common. They're
Not really a thing at all.
They're a bit of a rarity. Can you talk about how you guys approach the integrity of the story and character arcs in the game genre that often focuses on pure combat?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel because it's really like an adventure brawler, so it's allowed to have. It's a game where you can go up to someone and talk to them, and I think that because of that, it allows to have longer dialogue and longer exchanges because the player chooses to go see these characters, so you can have more of that. And I think that the fans of Scott Pilgrim, they want to go see like their favorite 4th level character like that they really like from the comics, and they want to go talk to Holly at the video shop. Like that's something that they want to do, so we get to do it, and it allows what could just be action to have like the texture and the feel of Scott Pilgrim.
Now, Bryan, the Scott Pilgrim world has always felt deeply personal, especially at a reflective time, at a certain time of your life. Has your perspective on these characters changed as you revisit them years later for this game?
Yeah, for sure. It's always evolving. I'm always trying to kind of like put my current perspective into it more and more, while still being true to the characters, true to what the fans expect. So I kind of just intuit it and try to have fun with it. They're doing crazy stuff in this game because it's a game first and foremost. Mm-hmm. So as a writer of the game, like I'm kind of following the game design, but we set out the story initially, and then we let the game designer do his thing, and then we're like, all right, let's make sense of this thing and make it fun and make it shine.
Yeah, it's really interesting because like we're still in the midst of writing it, and we're still discovering parts. And like a couple of months ago, I feel like we discovered like one emotional bit that we wanted to talk about, like say in the ending. We won't talk about it why, but it speaks to how Bryan feels and how I feel also right now, and something that we'd like to communicate to the audience of the game, maybe even like the younger audience of the game.
Sure.
So there's like Scott Pilgrim always transforms with the different versions.
Yannick, can you walk me through how Tribute Games levels up the classic 2D brawler?
Well, we have a saying at the company that we make games that feel the way you remember them, but when you play like an older beat 'em up, just on a pure gameplay level, like they're less forgiving.
Yeah.
Like they're not as it's hard sometimes to land blows. Like some of the enemies are really tough, so you can lose a whole lot of progress if you don't save. So we try to up the quality of life of these aspects. And there's also like art-wise, like we have like a float of talented animators who put so much character in those characters, and they make them feel alive. And that I feel like that's where we try to up the ante beat 'em up wise, because we're working on another beat 'em up that's more linear, and we're pushing back some boundaries in that one, but now going into something that you can explore and that is more textured and that you can sit with a bit more is a new territory for us, but it's really exciting.
Now, I know you mentioned Legend of Zelda as being a point of reference for this game. Are there any other games for fans that are just gamers that would want to play this that you can kind of compare it to?
I don't know. I don't play enough beat 'em ups lately. Like I'm trying to like wall myself off and just kind of be in our game.
I feel like the ultimate reference point is River City Ransom, like the original River City Ransom, where you walk across a city and you fight tough guys and other gangs, and it has a lot of charm, even despite being bare bones, and it has a complicated password system to save your game as well. But I feel like that's the Rosetta Stone of Scott.
Yeah,
Pilgrim.
and that was always a big influence on the comics. So it's really cool to kind of like go to that as our lodestone and kind of copy that form a little bit.
And when can we expect to be playing this game on our own consoles?
Sometime next year. I don't know how specific we're supposed to get, but 2026 definitely.
Well, 2026, I cannot wait, and hopefully we're back at Comic-Con next year talking about it, and maybe even working on a sequel or something. I know that you guys are deep in development on this one, but just always looking for the future.
We'd love to
We'd
finish
love
it
to.
first.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe we can make a sequel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. It's
Thanks.
been a pleasure having you here. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.